Out and networking. We have one more talk. We are so excited that Douglas Stevenson has traveled all the way from the farm in Summertown, Tennessee to visit with us and share about their incredible community. This intentional community is one of the oldest in the country. It's over almost 1,700 acres, nearly 250 residents. John and I actually had an opportunity to visit with Douglas, and he spent 2 entire days with us, showing us, it's a huge, gigantic community. It was such a profound experience, and we are actually working on post-production right now to share with you all the great interviews from that trip. The Eco Village Training Center, they have a schoolhouse, a beautiful swimming home, all natural. The garden, Douglas showed us his garden, and the community raised garden beds. And of course we met with one of the midwives. Karina shared a lot of information about their birthing center, which is perhaps how most of you have maybe heard of the community because of their incredible midwifery. And so without further ado, I am so honored to introduce you to Douglas Stevenson.
Thank you. Wow, it's so cool to see all of you all here today. Takes me back a little bit, 50-some years ago we were meeting like this, trying to figure out what to do. Back then we called it tune in, turn on, and drop out, and buy some land. So, do I get a laptop for? We'll get it there in just 1 second. All right. So, I want to thank Cynthia for giving you that really nice introduction into community. And so now this time we're going to take a deeper dive into my journey with community. I joined the farm over 50 years ago with my high school sweetheart. We were 19 when we got there. My wife is one of the midwives at the farm, and we had both of our children on the farm, and then she's delivered our 4 grandchildren on the farm. So it's really unique to have an entire life unfold before you. And what I hope to share with you today is something that you'll see what you can accomplish when you set your intention. Because we are founded on the idea that attention is energy. And what you put your attention into is what you get more of. And so when you focus and make goals and stick with them for a lifetime, there's no limit to what you can accomplish. And so without further ado, we'll jump right in to our story. There we go. We kind of go back to the 1950s, 1960s, when everything was very homogenized, what we would call very square. And then the Beatles came along and shook everything up and said, we're going to do things a different way. Because as we looked around at our culture and we saw the inequality, the war on our environment, war on other cultures, we said, we're going to do something different. And so we gathered in San Francisco by the hundreds of thousands for the Summer of Love, and a smaller group started meeting every Monday night just like this to say, what are we going to do with our lives? What is the meaning of our existence here on this planet? What can we do to make a difference? And so that's when we said, we can't just talk about it, we got to get some land and do it. And so we left San Francisco with 60 school buses, over 200 people in a search for land. And we looked around the country, we said, well, people were friendly in Minnesota, but it's too cold up there, you can't grow anything. But in Tennessee, people were friendly, land was cheap. And we landed on a farm and made friends with the neighbors, and eventually paid $70 an acre for 1,000 acres. Then a couple of years later, we got another 750 acres for $100 an acre. It was time to get out of the school buses. We needed more room, and we wanted something that everybody could afford. So we found we could get surplus army tents for 25 bucks a piece. We started going into the local towns and tearing down barns and houses, bringing the wood back so we could put a floor under the tent so you weren't on the ground. Maybe that shack had some good tin, put that on top of the tent, that way the stovepipe didn't have sparks coming out making holes in your roof. Maybe there were some good windows in that house, so you cut a hole in the side of the tent, mount some old windows in there, and let a little more light in. Next thing you knew, you had a little shack to live in. So this is a picture of my wife and I. We drove there in the proverbial VW van at the age of 19. A year later, we had our son, delivered by the community's midwives. Another foundation of our community was the idea of right livelihood. It's a Buddhist concept that means your work is seamless with your ideals. You're doing stuff that you truly believe in. Because when your work is something you believe in, you put 100% of your energy behind it. It's different than when you're working for a corporation and they're controlling everything. You're doing stuff for you, for what you believe. And so growing our own food, building our own homes, building homes for other people that were quality homes. This was right livelihood. It was about how do we take care of each other. We started out delivering our own babies because we wanted to do it more safer, more natural, on our own, not in a hospital. But as we were living there long, we found out people get sick, people get hurt. We had to learn more stuff. We had doctors come join the community. We had to have our own clinic, our own ambulance service. So we're coming into the mid-1970s, we're feeling pretty strong, growing our food, taking care of each other, but it's not just about building the ultimate hippie community. We are the white middle class, the lucky people on this earth who have benefited from the colonialism that has exploited people all around this world. What can we do to help them out, to bring them up? It's about being of service to humanity. And so we dedicated ourselves to a life of service and started looking around to see what we could do. We heard about an earthquake in Guatemala. It killed 25,000 people overnight because the adobe walls fell on people while they were sleeping. We sent some people down to see how we could help, and we found out Canada had sent a freighter with plywood, tin, and 2x4s, and no builders. We knew how to build. We sent down a team of carpenters and built 1,300 homes, rebuilt an entire village. We said, well, that was pretty cool. What else can we do? Thank you. We started building schools, municipal buildings. And as we were there, we saw that 70% of the population were Mayan people, still controlled by a colonial government from the Spanish times, but that the Indian people had their own internal government. So we built the Indigena Municipalidad, the Indian municipal building. And it's set up so that they have their own offices, their own meeting room, and then on the lower floor, those are tiendas that they can rent out. So it generates an income for the building. And it's become the center of the town's marketplace. Thank you. My wife and I spent 2 years down there as volunteers. She was our lab technician, so she could check our water and see if our water was clean, so we weren't picking up parasites. I was down there as the radio technician, so that we could call back to Tennessee on a daily basis for free, using the airwaves of communication. This is a Guatemalan family that's come to talk to their kid who's up on the farm in Tennessee, where we bring people up and help teach them mechanics, carpentry, electronics, skills they could take back to Guatemala so they could have a better life for their family. Our camp grew to about 100 people, and as we were living down there, we saw that the people were very short in stature, but it wasn't because they were genetically short, it was because they were malnourished. They weren't getting enough protein. We knew about soy as a good source of protein, so we started teaching people how to soak the beans, grind them on a metate the same way they did their corn. Put the beans in a pot and boil it, strain that off, and you had soy milk. Add some lemon juice, turns into curds and whey. You press that into blocks, that's soy cheese or tofu. We started a tofu plant down there that has been going now for over 40 years. But their best product is soybean ice cream. So we're getting high protein food that's being sold in villages, and it's a cottage industry for the village. But we needed clean water for our soy dairy, so we found we could go up in the mountains, cap a spring so that you were keeping the groundwater out, gravity feed that down to the village into a holding tank, then from gravity feed from that so that everybody got a spigot in their yard. No moving parts, no electricity. Our biggest project was for 3 villages with 10,000 people. Meanwhile, we're getting to about 1980. The farm's continuing to grow. We have about 1,500 people. This is in 1980 when the first oil crisis happened. Gas went to $1.50 a gallon. The construction industry tanked, which was how we made all our money. Meanwhile, the FBI has gone around to all the banks and told them to foreclose and call our loans in because we were using loans to finance our businesses. We discovered we were about $600,000 in debt, and we got all our checkbooks in one room. If we didn't change, we were going to lose everything. One of the major hospitals put a lien on our land because we didn't use insurance. We believed in taking care of each other. We didn't take welfare. And so we had what's called the changeover, where we changed from the communal economy, the income sharing economy that Cynthia was talking about, to a collective economy where we looked at everything in the community and we all voted to see what are we going to keep, what can we no longer afford. We're going to keep our water system, we're going to keep maintaining our roads, we're going to keep our buildings up. And it came to about $100 a month, and then we added another $35 a month to pay towards our debt, and in 3 years we were debt free.